I'm Alan Wartes, and this is Think Radio Presents Think Business. My guest today is third-generation Colorado rancher Hannah Cranor.
It's not about who you are, it's about how you manage the land and how you manage your animals and the markets. And so that evens the playing field right away. And we all kind of have the same opportunities. We have the same opportunities to sell cattle at the same price or sell hay at the same price. So I think it really does even the playing field.
Welcome to another great conversation on Think Radio.
Think Business is made possible by funding from the ICE Lab at Western, supporting innovative business in the rural Southwest.
If you like Think Business, then I know you'll enjoy the other shows in the Think Radio Presents family of podcasts. Think People, a celebration of just how amazing people can be. Think Planet, conversations with thought leaders on important environmental issues. Subscribe to Think Radio Presents on iTunes, YouTube, or wherever else you get great content. And don't forget to help us spread the word by liking our social media channels and sharing the content we post. We're grateful to have you in the conversation on Think Radio Presents. Cranor grew up on her family's ranch in the high country of Gunnison, Colorado, and represents a rare and shrinking breed these days. That is, she's a young person, and a woman to boot, who's chosen to pursue a career in agriculture. According to recent figures, the average age of farmers and ranchers in the U.S. is 58 and rising. Hannah received a degree in ranch management from the University of Wyoming, but there was no guarantee she'd return home to carry on the family business. Yet, bucking the national trends, that's exactly what she decided to do. I'm eager to hear why and what Hannah thinks the future holds for young ag producers like herself. Hannah, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
So you're a ranch kid.
Yeah, I'm third generation now, so
Yeah.
Been there for a while.
And I was thinking about this, though, because a lot of people around the country can say that, grew up on a ranch. Mm-hmm. Not many people can say they grew up on a ranch in the coldest place in the country.
Yeah, it's rough. It's not very fun to feed cows when it's negative 20 outside, but they want to eat. So.
It's not fun to do anything when it's negative 20 outside,
that's right.
but let alone.
Yeah, that's when you stay inside.
So I would imagine you have some stories to tell. I mean, that when you and your siblings get together and think about what it was like growing up in this place. If you had to pick one sort of iconic story that summed up what it's like to be a ranch kid in an environment like this, what would it be?
I think, and this could happen to anyone. I don't know if this is ranch specific, but we used to go on moonwalks when I was little. There's 5 of us, so we'd all put on all our winter stuff. We always went in the winter when it's cold and miserable. So you bundle all up and then go out, and we always walk. We have a heated water tank for our cows, and so you walk to the lane in the back. And so one time my little brother licked a bolt when it was negative something, 20, 30, miserably cold outside, and it got stuck to his tongue so bad that we had to take him to the house, and Mom had to run water on his tongue in the sink to get it out. And I think that just sums up living in Gunnison.
It does.
Not a ranch, but just any situation in Gunnison.
It kind of also sums up being a kid because, kids are always doing stuff like that. It reminds me of a line from a Garrison Keillor book, Lake Wobegon, where he lived in terror growing up there of forgetting and putting his tongue on the flagpole, right? But
yeah.
It actually happens.
It does happen, especially in Gunnison.
Wow. So growing up on a ranch, though, obviously there was something that got under your skin about caring for animals, cattle in particular, because you went off to Wyoming and got a degree in ranch management and the business of ranching. Thinking back to maybe that moment or a series of moments where you thought, no, this isn't just my childhood. This is what I really want to do. How did you come to that?
I think it really started in 4-H. I was a 4-H member for 11 years.
Wow.
And my cousin, Scott Redden, and I watched him show chickens, of all things, and I was like, I want to do that. And so I showed chickens for a couple of years, and I was like, this is what I want to do.
Uh-huh.
And then I graduated when I was big enough. Dad let me raise steers, and so I graduated to steers. And that, I really think 4-H was like, that's when I knew that this is what I wanted to do. And actually, it was kind of funny. I went off to college, and I planned on coming back eventually. And I graduated, and like I think a lot of college graduates have happened, I was just like, okay, now what?
Yeah.
I have a degree, and I don't know what I want to do.
Yeah.
So I kind of moved back because I didn't know what else to do, which I wish I could
see.
say I moved back because I had this strong passion. But it was kind of just I moved back because I didn't know really, and I knew eventually I'd move back. And so when I moved back, it was a little unplanned.
Well, what were some of the other options that you considered? I mean, you had this degree in ranch management. What else were you going to do?
I was actually going to stay in Wyoming, and I wanted to work for the USDA for a couple of years. And then I got a really great opportunity with Gunnison County, actually. I'm an equipment operator as my side job.
Okay, does that mean you move the snow around? Okay.
Yeah, I work in Crested Butte, so
there you go.
We've been very busy. So I got that really great opportunity, and it was kind of one of those. It's like, well, maybe this is a sign that this is the time to move back. And I knew eventually I wanted to, and so it was kind of the push in the right direction of, hey, like, it's all falling into place. Things happen for a reason. So
Yeah.
I moved back, and I'm so glad I did.
And with the intention now of taking over the operation. I mean, this is a family ranch.
Yeah, that's the long-term goal is to eventually take it over.
Yeah.
Right now I work with my dad on the
Yeah.
ranch. We both work outside of the ranch, so it's kind of good to have a second person. It's a lot of work along with the job, so
Yeah.
it's really good to have two of us to kind of.
Well, yeah, because I was looking at some statistics about ag producers, and I was really surprised to see the number of farmers and ranchers in the United States that work outside the farm.
Yeah, it's
It's something like 60%.
that's a lot.
Why do you think that is? I mean, that's an astonishing
I think
fact.
ag, it's a hard industry. I mean, it's so market dependent. You're price takers, not price makers. And so really a job outside can kind of help balance out a really bad market year. Your side job can kind of balance that out. And the other thing is land is worth so much that unless you have land already, you can't really buy. And so
Yeah.
a big struggle is expanding. Because, I mean, I don't know how you expand with land prices so high, and so.
So that's a very interesting point because I think a lot about that for new farmers and ranchers wanting to get into the business to begin with.
Yeah.
Very prohibitive. I mean, they're looking at things like leases now more than buying. But I hadn't thought about that same problem affecting existing producers, meaning you can't grow.
Yeah.
Your
You're kind
operation.
of stuck a little bit. And it's pretty cool. I mean, ag is we're making a bunch of changes because we have to. I mean, like you said, the leases. There's people that ranch completely off leases, and it's working for them. So it's cool to see, like, ag change and kind of, like, it has to change to keep up with what, the different climate, or not the climate, but like
the market climate.
The market climate,
Yeah.
And so it's cool to see it adapt and kind of change because it's one of those it's hard to change. You've done it that way forever, and you're gonna keep doing it that way forever.
The traditions are very deep.
Yeah, they are. So
Well, and there's a limit to really how many ways you can produce cattle on high mountain pasture, for instance.
Yeah, with a short growing season, there's not.
Yeah.
It's kind of the way it is.
Well, one of those changes over the last several decades, but it seems to be accelerating even now, is that young people are fleeing this industry left and right. I mean, the number of the way the statistics read is new operators below the age of 35 is really fairly small. And the average age of the farmer in America is up around 60 now. What makes you different? Why are you one of those few that has said, no, I could do a lot of things, but...
I think, to me, agriculture was a way of life, which sounds so cliche, but it really was. I mean, that's what I grew up doing, and that's what I love. And so it was one of those. It's really important to us to keep it in the family, and to keep Gunnison how it is. I mean, I read today that there's something like 200,000 acres in ag, and 40,000 of those acres are conserved. So that's pretty astounding. Which, I mean, that's why people come to Gunnison, is the views, which we keep those views if we keep ag. And so to me, it was really important to make sure that that stays around. And I love animals. I have a bunch of animals, but so to me, I love the cattle and I love working with them. So it just kind of made sense.
Well, that's an interesting point. You talk about the view. Keeping a community open and green is a service that ag producers have provided for a long time. And that's one of the things that is threatened by this fact that, well, sooner or later, that average age of 60 is going to reach 80, and now we're not going to have anybody to work the land anymore.
Yeah.
When you were at college, university, looking at this problem, what solutions were identified in your education to try to deal with this problem?
I think the biggest problem is just a lack of education about agriculture. I think it's kind of an elusive job maybe. I don't think people really get it, and I don't think people really understand where their food comes from.
Well, that's the truth.
I don't think there's really a sense of urgency to be involved in ag because we kind of all just take it for granted. And I think it starts with, I mean, even elementary kids, just understanding ag and being excited about it. I mean, we did the Small Animal Day, and I think they still do it. The Cattle Women puts it on, and I think it's the kindergartners come in and do the petting zoo. And that's like a day you can get kids like, this is cool. Like, you get to hang out with animals all day. And so I think it's really important to instill it at a young age, and they really have to love it to want to pursue it. I mean, it's a hard job. Like I said, I mean, you're so dependent on the market, and so it's so fluctuating, and nothing's ever guaranteed, which is terrifying if you take out a big loan to start your ranch or start your operation, and then everything crashes. Then you're kind of high and dry.
Yeah, so that's sort of the motivation side of the answer to that question. What can be done to sort of deal with this trend of the aging of the industry? What about structurally? I mean, things like access to loans that makes it easier for people. Are there things coming down the pipeline that recognize this problem and try to get at it?
You know, I think there is access, but people don't realize to loans and stuff. So, for example, the Farm Service Agency has a new rancher loan, because I looked into it seriously, and they only offer it if you can't get other financing. So I have to explore like our local banks and stuff to get financing, and then if they deny you, you can go to the FSA and apply. And then they also have minority loans, women in ag loans to help kids get started. And I don't think those are known. I think that's kind of a mystery, and I think those exist. They need to be utilized, and I don't think they are.
Well, that's a good point, that maybe some people would make this choice if they knew that there were resources available. Where can they find resources like that? I mean, if I'm that person, I'm like, I love animals too. This is a lifestyle that does appeal to me. Where do I go to get started?
The USDA website is incredibly helpful. That's where you can get to the Farm Service Agency and all their stuff. And the other thing is the local extension. Eric McPhail is amazing. He can tell you anything about anything. And so I think really just Eric reaching out to the local extension, or even going up to just the USDA website and spending a couple, when you're surfing on your phone, just looking through it, and you can find a lot.
And let's be clear that every community has an Eric McPhail working the extension. So there are people in your community, wherever you are, that can provide that information. There are some big social trends at work here too. It's not just about the nuts and bolts of how this business works. You've already mentioned one of them, and I want to talk a little bit more about that. The level of disconnection that most people experience from their food. They have no idea, really. I mean, there have been studies where kids legitimately think their food comes from the grocery store. Why do you think we're there? What has happened to the nation that we have gotten to the point where something so fundamental is so remote from most people's experience?
I think there's just such a big disconnect from the ranchers and just the general public. And I mean, like, we're kind of isolated out here a little bit in Gunnison. So it's kind of hard to reach maybe the people in Denver and say, hey, this is truly where your burger came from. It came from this cow on this ranch. And I think the other biggest thing is just agriculture and schools. And it just kind of dropped a little bit. And I think more funding needs to be put to it and a bigger emphasis because it is important. And I think for so long it was just taken so much for granted because there's always food in the grocery store. You never think about it like, hey, this could be an issue because you go to the store and you buy a burger or whatever. And it's not a thing. But it will be a thing if we don't start educating and doing things right now. So I think education and even like social media outreaches, like the Gunnison Ranchland Legacy, they do just social media like, hey, did you know there's 40,000 acres conserved? And I think just stuff like that, and you're like, whoa, like I didn't know there was that much.
Is your family ranch under conservation easement?
We just got finished last summer. So.
And what exactly does that mean? Some people listening might not know what that is.
So the Gunnison Ranchland Conservation get grants from all sorts of, so Great Outdoors Colorado and a couple different people gave the grants for the conservation for our place. And so what we did was we sold the development rights. So essentially, no matter what happens, we sell the ranch, or hopefully never, but if that happens, it can never be developed. So that will always be open space. It's cool because it will never be developed. So that will always be an open space.
What do you think about the fact that, as cool as that is, and it really is, because you're also conserving water rights, and so the water stays on the land, and that's a big deal too.
Yeah.
What do you think about the criticism of conservation easements in that they're part of what's driving the price of land up? In other words, if you take a bunch of land off the market, what's left is more expensive, which then turns around and makes it harder for you.
Yeah.
Right? What do you think about that?
I mean, I don't think that's completely untrue. I think whenever you take something off the market, if, for example, half the beef went off the market, beef prices would go up considerably. But I think it's so important that it doesn't get developed. I mean, it may be raising land prices a little bit, but we have to remember that we eat every day, all the time, and so it's so important that I think there's some disconnect, and people see the number like, whoa, that's so much land can never be developed, and it's like, yeah, but that's so much land that's gonna provide you your steak.
It's still producing.
It is producing and
food.
The idea is that it will produce forever, and it will never be turned into condos. And the other big thing is that, I mean, it drives people to come to Gunnison because there is all this land that you can look at, and it's wide open spaces, which is, I mean, you can drive down and see the elk and Trampy's Meadow, and that's what drives people here.
Yeah, and one of the things that I find interesting is that that's happening in communities all over the West.
Yeah,
it's not just here.
Yeah, it's cool.
Anytime you drive through a community, and especially in the Mountain West, chances are you're looking at some land that is open because ag producers are keeping it open, maybe through a conservation easement, maybe just because that's what they love and want to do. That's a service that ag producers are providing to society that we wouldn't get any other way.
Yeah.
Once condos are on it, that's it.
Yeah, there's no turning back at that point.
Here's another interesting part of your story. You know, we hear a lot in society today about industries and whole sectors of business that are sort of, if not outright discriminatory against women, women complain that they have limited opportunity in the tech sector, for instance, or whatever you might call it, the glass ceiling that we've become so familiar with. I was looking at some of the numbers and was really astonished to see that in Colorado, 37% of ag producers are women. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Right? So my question to you in all of that is, Do you feel that this is an industry that really just kind of levels the playing field? That women are every bit as ripe with opportunity as their male counterparts?
I definitely think so. I mean, it's not about who you are. It's about how you manage the land and how you manage your animals, and the markets. And so that evens the playing field right away. And we all kind of have the same opportunities. We have the same opportunities to sell cattle at the same price or sell hay at the same price. So I think it really does even the playing field. And it's kind of funny because I work road construction as well, which is another one of those industries you might not think of women. And it's been awesome. I love it. And I love being one of the only girls in there. Mm-hmm. And I think that levels the playing field too, because you either can run a loader or you can't. And you're either good at running a loader or you're not very good at running a loader. And it doesn't matter your sex or anything. It's, did you slide the loader into the ditch or did you not? I mean, that's kind of, it's so dependent on what your skills and not.
Right.
It doesn't, I mean.
Well, so it brings the question up, why is that so hard to achieve elsewhere in other industries, I wonder? You know, here you are saying, well, it's just a matter of merit. It's what you can do. Mm-hmm. And the animals don't care. Yeah,
they don't care as long as they're fed.
Right? Keep the snow off the field when you feed me. As a woman, why do you think that these are exceptions to the rule? These industries that you've started in?
You know, I'm not really sure, and I think the opportunity is there. I think it's just sometimes hard to be the only girl. Mm-hmm. For example, in Wyoming, there's a huge wage gap, and if you look at the numbers, it's because women are in the service field and men are in the oil fields, and so that's the wage gap there in Wyoming is almost the worst in the nation. But I think it's not that the opportunity isn't there. I think it's just hard. It's really hard to be the only girl in something and to be that girl, because I think if you do a bad job, then every other female behind you will be judged off of what you did. So you need to set a good example. And so I think it's really intimidating. And I can never imagine going and working out in the oil fields. I mean, that's so intimidating to me. So I'm not trying to blame anyone. I just think it's a huge...
Yeah.
You have to really be willing to put your everything on the line and go for it.
Well, it's at least nice to know that ag producers can be women and they wouldn't really feel any such thing.
Yeah.
You know, as you say, a bale of hay costs what it costs. And as you look forward to the prospect of taking over the family ranch, what are the particular obstacles that you think you're going to have to overcome to really make that work in this day and age, at your age?
I think for me right now, it's a lot just to balance everything. Trying to work full time and then run a ranch. And then I like to go to the gym and occasionally have a social life. And it's
what a concept.
Right, what a concept. But it's a lot and it's really overwhelming. There's some days where it's like, well, it's fine. I don't need to sleep. And so I think just managing everything, which you'd think I would have learned at college, but I had no idea what time management was until now. And then I think, it's funny, I thought I learned so much in college, and then I moved back and I know nothing. College taught me tons, but just everything I need to learn from my dad. When things break, I'm like, oh gosh, Dad, hey look, this is broken. And now it's like, well,
what are you going to do about it?
What am I going to do about it? I'm either going to have to, hire mechanics, or I think to me that's going to be the biggest issue is I don't know how to fix things.
Mm-hmm. I bet you're going to learn.
I'm going to learn really fast, or I'm going to start hiring
that's
out.
Another interesting thing about ag producers. They tend to be knowledgeable about just about everything. These are really smart people in all of the practical ways that if you live in a high-rise in a city, you don't ever really fully appreciate. Because you brought up an interesting point about agriculture is that it never sleeps.
Yeah.
Well, especially ranching.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're a wheat farmer right now, you can be saying, okay, well, it's not quite as intense as harvest time. Mm-hmm. Does that scare you?
A little bit. I think I mean, right now we kind of split it up between my mom and my dad and I, and so it's a little bit less intimidating. Like, hey, you can check cows at 2 and I'll check at midnight. But when they retire, which hopefully they don't ever retire, but when they retire, it's gonna be
Sorry, Mom and Dad.
right.
You have to live
you're
forever.
never leaving. But it's gonna be a lot. I mean, it's even days when my dad will be gone. It's like, oh my gosh, I have to feed the cows and do this before dark, and it's 4. Like, how? What? So I think it's just, I mean, time management more than anything, which is intimidating. It's and that's something you kind of learn as you go. I think you can't take a college class to learn that.
And it's true for a lot of people in a lot of different settings. But boy, when you're responsible for, 500 head of cattle or whatever that number might be, that's a whole new level. What's the most rewarding thing to you? Now, and I'm not talking about a big picture level, right? Yeah. Just like the nuts and bolts, hands-on. What are those moments where you just kind of settle into your skin and say, oh, I really love what I do?
I think when a calf gets up,
for the first time,
when they're first born, they're the mom licks them off and they get up. It's like, okay, my job here is done. Like this went well. The calves were healthy. We fed them right in order to have healthy calves come out. And so just that. And then when you're baling hay, and I have horrible luck. I always break everything. And so it's like everything is working and the bales are perfect. It's like, yeah, this is fun. And you're just driving in circles, really. But it's so relaxing, and it's like this is what I love to do. And
well, I've never worked a hay baler before, but I have said many times during haying season as I'm driving along that the sight of all those bales in the field is just incredible.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful, beautiful sight. I don't know, it touches something really deep, almost like that's wealth somehow.
Yeah,
sitting
it really
out there
is.
in the field.
It really is.
And not even for me.
Yeah,
it just feels like, okay, our society is healthy when the land is producing what we need. That will be the biggest tragedy to me as we go forward, is if this gap between farmers and ranchers, ag producers of all kinds, and the people who consume those products continues to grow, there's just something really almost poetic that we've lost.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
I do. And I think the cool thing, I was a rodeo queen. I don't know if you know that, but I was a rodeo queen 3 years ago now. Gosh. But I think it's cool because we used rodeos to kind of tie that gap in, because that's kind of an event where maybe they don't go to learn about ag, they just go to have a good time and eat their corn dog and have fun. But you can kind of, and the rodeo announcers will do a really good job of tying it in. And the reason that this rodeo is here today is because there's all these ranchers behind it. And so it's cool.
Right.
Things like that, I think we can really use to connect it. And even if that would be basketball games. And hey, look, the leather for that basketball came from a cow, and that is because we have all these ranchers. And so I think we have
even
to get
basketballs.
We have to get creative of connecting these dots, because the gap is just getting bigger, like you said. And that's terrifying.
Well, it is, because not only do we stand to lose, some knowledge out of this society, because I worry about this idea that the farmers and the ranchers are all getting to the point where they're just going to have to retire if nobody's coming along behind them, or their land gets bought up and automated and the family farm just goes away. That's a huge loss. But just the experience of eating food and feeling connected to it.
And I think we have some local producers that I think are doing a really good job of kind of bringing it more of like a farm to table experience.
Yeah.
So you're actually thinking, I'm not sure if this is still a thing, but I know you used to be able to lease a cow or pay for part of a cow and they'd give you milk. And so that it's like a direct way of being like, hey, my food comes from that cow. My milk doesn't come from a plastic bottle in the store. It comes out of Bessie. And I think that's a really cool way of reminding people of why ag is important and where it comes from. And so we understand why people are conserving their land, and because it is important. I mean, we all need to eat.
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot of scientific research these days that suggests that better management of grasslands can actually make a big difference in the challenges of climate change.
Mm-hmm.
You know, better managed grasslands store more carbon. You know, it's et cetera. What do you think about that? Are you thinking forward and looking like, okay, how can we use our ranch to do things differently in a way that is environmentally more sound?
That was the second. So the first big reason we conserved was to keep it family and to keep it within, like, to conserve so it doesn't ever get developed. And then the second biggest reason was actually the wildlife. To us, it was very, very important to keep that deer habitat. I saw 4 deer on my way here, actually. So I stopped and took pictures, of course. But so that was really important to us. And then the other thing was the Gunnison sage-grouse, which I don't know if you know, the Gunnison sage-grouse is actually increasing in numbers since we realized and started taking action. And a lot of that is because of the ranchers realizing that and making sure that land stays conserved, and the sage-grouse, I guess, won't cross trails. So keeping that land open and free and not cluttered, because they won't cross a trail to go to another lek or something. So that was another big thing for us. Yet
another social service that ag producers are providing.
Yeah. Which is all. I mean, I hunt, and so to me that's a really big. It's so important that our wildlife needs somewhere to live, and so I think, if not maintaining it for our own cattle, then the wildlife. I mean, the deer use our place all winter. We don't, for our cows are on the meadows, but the deer utilize them. So. Well,
Hannah, thank you for coming back and being on the land and shifting that statistic about young people in agriculture just a little bit. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And thanks for the conversation.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Join us next week for another great conversation on Think Radio Presents Think Business.